So we end up in the car driving like half an hour out of the way to go to this compound where the Taliban local commander is with all his like henchmen and a bunch of other guys with like 100 guns on the wall, like ammunition, like the kind of gun where you like hold it and do that, like from heat, like crazy guns.
Like a turret gun.
Yeah. We're like, what the hell, dude?
Okay, today we have a super exciting guest, Giulio Gallarotti. He is a New York City-based comedian, actor, and podcaster. And now he's here for two reasons. First off, he's super funny and an awesome podcast host, so that makes sense. But secondly, he's traveled his ass off. So this guy has been all over the world making videos in Afghanistan, Iraq, Rwanda. Super cool. I hope we get to talk about how you got practically kidnapped by the Taliban and detained in Russia back in the day. But first, settle this debate. So Kenny and I are going to Curacao in a week, and we are arguing on the best series to get through the flight. So upon his suggestion, I watched, like 8 episodes of Entourage last night to test the waters, And I'm at a point where I don't know if I should like commit or switch to something else. But what is your recommendation of the most binge-worthy TV show to pass time on your flights?
Interesting. Well, lately I've been watching nature shows on my flights.
Learning something.
It depends. I'm not sure where you guys are flying, but like for some reason, the last couple like Emirates flights I've been on, there've been like BBC sort of like whatever their annual nature thing has come out, and it's like always available on there, but it's not yet available on like American Apple TV because it comes out like a year after. So like that's always exciting to me. So I watched like the new Frozen Planet, which was super sick. And I feel like it's nice too, because if you decide you want to fall asleep, it's like easier to just kind of like check out, even though there's like a lot going on. It's if you're like really invested in a story, like a scripted show, if I find it harder to like not listen if I need to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good suggestion, but that's probably what I would say. Find a good nature show.
I feel like I have like hypersensitivity on planes, how you're like extra emotional. At least I am. I feel like if I watched one of those shows, I'd just be like, like I'd be sobbing the whole way there. But I don't know. That's just me.
I think that's the thing. I mean, like if I ever watch a really scary movie on a plane, I'm like way more scared.
What is that?
I don't know.
It's the altitude, man.
There's a name for it because we've talked about this in our pod as well. And like people have like messaged us saying that there's some sort of phenomenon about like watching shit on the plane and having it be more intense.
It's so true. It's kind of synonymous to like being in a car when it's raining and you're looking out the window, like it's a music video of your own. It's like that on a plane.
Have you ever sat on a plane and watched someone watch their iPad and you're like, oh my God, they're watching 50 Shades of Grey? Because I legitimately was on a flight like 2 months ago, and this woman diagonal on the aisle was just like full on doing the 50 Shades of Grey thing on the plane. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a bold choice for 22D. I mean, I was like, people can see you as what you're watching. Are you ever mindful of what you watch, or you're just like, you know what, this is my space, I'm going to do whatever I want?
I've never watched anything like that on a flight. So like, it maybe makes it easier. I mean, like usually if I'm watching something on a plane, I'm probably watching something for the first time. So like, I either don't know if something like that pops up, or if it's something like that, I don't know. I've actually never even seen that, but I've heard that it's like really, quote, racy.
Sure.
And quite racy.
I would probably feel self-conscious if I were watching something like that, especially like on your iPad, because they probably don't even offer that on the actual flight, right? Like in flight entertainment. Yeah, you have to you have to download that on your own. That's like stream your own stuff option.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. That lady's a cowboy though. Good for her.
She was pausing. She was pausing, rewinding the entire thing. I was like, lady, this is a public space.
Rewinding. Watches the same scene 5 times. Okay, Giulio, I want to start off with your most recent big adventure to Afghanistan. So tell me, like, how did you choose this place? What was making a video like? You started a freaking school. Let's just like talk about how all of this happened.
Man, so I was just trying to think of a good place to kind of do the places you can go theme, which is like I did that with my Iraq video, which is just like the idea of like there's a place you think that you can't even go there. Like, would you even go if you could? Probably not. You know what I mean? And I've always kind of just been fascinated by the idea that like places are not typically as intimidating as you think if you actually go to them. So I've been kind of taking steps closer and closer to the sun with it each time. Um, and Afghanistan was definitely more intense than any other trip that I have personally done, probably all things considered. And when you pay for these big trips and you're going and you want to make a video, like it's nice to know that like even if nothing that exciting were to happen, you're still in a place that people are curious about. Because
Yeah.
you run the risk if you don't have that at a baseline, you kind of run the risk of like maybe not being able to make anything worth watching. Now, granted, the stuff, if as long as you're decent at editing or if you have somebody decent editing for you, you'll be able to put something together. But anyway, so that's not to say that I'm intending to go to like Ukraine right now. You know what I mean? I don't. The idea of going to like an active war play, I don't want to be unethical. You know what I mean? I don't want to be too exploitative.
Yeah.
But I also don't think going to Afghanistan and filming and showing a video there is exploitative. Like, why is it exploitative? Like to me,
Yeah.
that is more condescending than going and making the video. Like these people, the people we met, most of them love being on the camera. They're
Mhm.
not the Taliban. They just live there. It's not their fault they live there. You know what I mean? So to me, I was trying to think of a place that wasn't Afghanistan because I was kind of scared of it. I knew my family would be mad at me. I knew everyone would be annoyed and like not and like think that I'm taking it too far.
They're saying their goodbyes before you leave. You're like,
You know,
relax.
the hug with my girlfriend was slightly longer than it usually is before a trip.
No.
But listen, like it just ended up being like the spot that made sense. Like the trip, I was talking to a guide planning it, the guy at least who gave us the guide, and he was like, "Guys, like you're fine." And then like while we were planning the trip, they sort of like drone struck one of the like Al Qaeda guys who I guess was living in Afghanistan still and killed him. And like that scared us so bad. We're like, oh my God, we can't go anymore. And then it's funny, you like message the guide and you're like, did you look, can we still come? Can we still come? And he's like, dude, this literally wasn't even news here. Like, you're fine. Like, nobody died except him. Like,
Ideal situation.
he's like, it wasn't a big deal here. And, I wonder to what degree that's him just being like, all right, let's make sure we get this guy over here. Or if he was, I'm leaning in the direction that it's true. It wasn't like big news or whatever. But anyway, so you're sitting there going back and forth. These moments you're like, this is the move. Other moments where you're like, am I being crazy? Like, it's a really emotional roller coaster. And then, it just ended up being the spot. Yeah. So
Amazing. It's kind of, it must be intense for those people to see you walking around with the camera and just being like, hey, I'm making a travel vlog. I bet all of the people there were just like, what the fuck is happening?
No, not really, honestly. Sometimes, there were certain areas where like, if you have a camera and you see camera, like some people were a little kind of like, which we weren't used to. I mean, it actually depends where you are. But like for a situation like this, we expected that people would be like really into the camera. And most of them were, but then some of them weren't. But then like the more you get out of this big city, the more everybody just like really wants to be on the camera. Also, our camera sort of passes as a photo camera. So people want you to take their picture. So they'll be like, take a picture of me. And you'll be like, okay. And then they don't even want the picture. They just want a picture of them to be taken. They're like, can you take a picture of me? And you're like, sure. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And then that's the end of the interaction.
Just walk away.
It's like super, super fascinating.
That's
but I would
crazy.
say, yeah, like 97% of people have absolutely no problem with the camera, are cool, want to be on it, are cool about being on it, and are very, very nice.
After you filmed the video, did you get any feedback from people from like from the Taliban or locals, like sick video? Was there any kind of interaction post production?
Okay, so update. The actual full video is not yet out. I have like little sprinkles online, which you guys have probably seen. But the video itself is not out. I have not gotten any. I've been wondering about how I'm going to handle that because, the school element, like, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this later, but like we ended up starting the school, whatever, great, all good things. But there's a sort of balance between like exposing the school and raising money and like putting the school in like a risky situation. Now, I don't think the Taliban are the biggest potential problem. The biggest problem are just kind of like poor people who are like, ooh, there must be money there. Like, let's go see what's up. Like bandits, as they called it. We have full like permits and stuff to operate. So I'm wondering, if there are any settings that I'm going to put on the video to make like certain places not able to see it or whatever. I haven't fully decided how I'm going to handle that. But with my Iraq video, and obviously it's not the same, but it's just the same series, the places you can go series. Like, to be honest, it's a pet peeve of mine when people group Iraq and Afghanistan. They're just like such different places. And I get that like we were in long wars in both of them, but people will very regularly be like, I'm excited for the Iraq video to come out, but they mean Afghanistan.
Oh, no.
It's fine, but like it's interesting. So, but with the Iraq video, people were very, very happy. They were like, this is so, thank you for showing, where we're from in a positive way. Like it's such a great place with so many great things. Thank you for not just talking about bad things. So
yeah,
as cliche as that concept might be, I like that a lot. And while I'm not going to, irresponsibly paint a picture that isn't true, like I'm going to show what I saw, I'm also very interested in unlocking the sort of like nice things about places and people that have nothing to do with sort of like politics or war or any of that shit.
100%. Where's next on the list? I'm trying to think. I think I would love to see an Antarctica video based on Kenny's conspiracy theory.
Have you heard me talk about that at all?
No. Are you in on the conspiracy theory too? Are you kidding?
No, I want to hear more. I want to hear more about the conspiracy theory, but Antarctica is somewhere that I've considered doing a video. I think it could be fun and funny, and like also there's elements about it that are interesting to me that are like slightly different than the usual like people angle. Since I'm sure there's going to be people there, but it's not going to be as much of a cultural deep dive as some of the past stuff I've done. So very interested in doing that. I kind of am interested in doing. I'm trying to like get a partner to like do a video with. So, if AllFly wants to talk, hit me up.
Yeah, come to Curacao. We're trying to make a travel vlog in Curacao.
Oh, nice. Fun. Yeah, once I get like see what the deal is with like partners and shit, then I'll decide more specifically because I have like a long list. So depending on whatever, if I'm able to like partner up or whatever, if any of them have some sort of preference, I don't really care which video I do. I just want to do them. So
yeah. So we're a corporate travel management company. So we book like group airfare for retreats and offsites and incentives and stuff. And people are taking really unique trips these days, and Curacao is one of the locations of the next industry event we're going to. So we're like, when the hell will we ever go here again? We got to make a super cool video. So we're trying to figure out like, it's like, how much do you script? How much do you not? How much is winging it? All of that is kind of in the works.
Well, I can give you a lot of advice about that. This is what I do. So
hit me.
I would say you script as much as you can. You plan as much stuff as you can, but don't be married to your plan because typically the best stuff is the stuff that just happens while you're there. So make the plan, be willing to change it, and be like, all right, at the very least, we have this plan. And if nothing interesting happens, like we'll have enough to make something out of whatever it is that we get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't micromanage it too hard because you can't really plan. And by planning it too much, you sort of lose the surprise also. So like there's a balance between planning enough, but not over planning to the point where you know exactly what to expect. And then you can't react. And granted, you could fake it, but it's not as fun. You know what I mean? It's important to like have it be a fun experience.
Yeah, and realistic. I don't know if I could fake it that hard. We're like riding dolphins and stuff, so get like a clip of me surfing a dolphin, and then we'll just voice over it. It's fine.
And what is the point to like show what kind of stuff you guys are putting together, kind of thing? Like, what's the purpose of the vlog?
Yeah, so basically, our like media company with AllFly is Travel Nerds. So we're just trying to find a way to make content that's interesting and not super generic. Like there aren't a lot of, like I said, travel blogs online that are super interesting. This isn't me hating on the travel vlog arena, but like yours, for example, is something I could watch all the way through because it feels like a TV show. I think a lot of them are like, this is what you eat, and I just can't get through so many of them. So
Yes.
yeah.
And that's a good, so I appreciate you noticing that. So we really try to make like a cohesive, like television friendly show, as opposed to like a really sick 30-second teaser with drone shots and like slow motion, and then just like me with a selfie cam for 37 minutes. You know what I mean? Without cutting once. So like I'm not interested in making clickbait. Like I want to make really good shit that like scales down. So like if I want to clip it up, great. And then maybe that stuff can be like a little less, you know what I mean, intense or like thorough, but like for the purpose to drive people to the main thing. The one thing I will say, if you're going to like a Curacao, I don't know much about Curacao, but I know it's like whatever Dutch colony. I'm sure there's like resorts. So I would say try not to, and this is, I have no idea what kind of video you're making. This is general for people vlogging. If you're going to a place like that, try to shoot as much stuff off of the resort and don't try to vlog on group trips. It's impossible. I've done it before. It's a massive, it's one of the biggest mistakes we've ever made was booking group travel and trying to vlog on it. It just fucking, you're first of all, you're that guy. You're being that guy, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And you're just limited with what you can do. Like you can't. So that's another thing. I like to go places where like I bake in my local guide and make them into the star of the video. So like guides are usually really charismatic. They're usually really friendly, great people, like fun to be around. And you're with them all day long. And if you can book a private situation, I like doing that. Because like in some countries, I'd probably be priced out of doing that, where it's like there's group trips, but then if you were to want to do it alone, it would be just like unaffordable. So a place like Afghanistan or Iraq, like if you want to have a fulfilling journey and like a nice trip, you should have a companion to take you around. If you do it solo, you're just going to spend most of the time talking to the authorities. Most of your trip will be spent talking to the authorities. In Iraq, if you don't travel around, you can do it fine. Like you can go to Baghdad and bounce around and be completely fine and not worry about shit. But if you try to like travel between provinces, you're going to spend hours and hours and hours sitting in the police station. They're going to be nice to you. They'll give you tea. They'll joke around with you. They'll let you hold their gun. You know what I mean? But like,
let you hold their gun.
Yeah.
But they're waiting for
my gun. No, dude.
They're afraid to let you in. They're not you. And maybe, you know, I went to Iraq a couple of years ago. It might be different now, but like they're afraid to let you go in and then something happens to you and then they get in trouble. So they're waiting for their boss to say it's okay. Who's waiting for his boss to say it's okay. And in Afghanistan, it's the same thing, but like much more raw because the Taliban still are like super new. And, you know, when I got there, the guys who took me in for, you know, 4 or 5 hours, they previously with the same guy that I was with had taken people overnight thinking that they were like arresting foreigners still. And they didn't know that they weren't supposed to. And then his boss was like, dude, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. They let them go. So like we were the next step of that. Granted that we still got shaken down for like a little money, which wasn't common. And they only asked for a very little amount and they were like really embarrassed. It was super weird, but I'm not trying to like make them seem nice. Like they still like kidnapped us basically.
And just to clarify, we're talking about the Taliban for the people. Yeah, so they like went through your bag, basically. They were just sifting.
So this is funny. They made me search myself because they said that it was rude if they searched me. So there's like a bunch of stuff like that. There's all these like principles, but then there's like loopholes where you can still be a piece of shit if you want. So like, it's really fucked up to take money from someone, right? But as long as I don't give the money to the guy who asked me for it, he's not technically accepting the money. So like, he asked me for money, I gave it to him. He made me give it to his assistant. So therefore, like, he wasn't taking it. You know what I mean? It was all this weird honor stuff. You know what I mean? So anyway, back to what I was originally saying. So to me, it's really nice to have a guide who can also be in the video and who can also make sure you have sort of like the best trip. And if you want to pivot and do something different, they can do it for you and help you with everything.
That's a really good pro tip. Your guide in the Iraq video was so sweet. And it was bizarre when you were like, everyone around here that's like professional adults are like 21. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. We had 3 like really young guides. They were so great. I've been in touch with all of them still. I hope that we can run it back. Well, 2 of them moved to Malaysia, and I'm kind of interested in the idea of like linking up with them and doing a video with them, but in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking about that a little bit. That could be fun. Yeah.
That fits the mold. of the places.
Totally. And it's, it's nice to have these like recurring characters theoretically, if
Yeah.
possible. So,
Yes, you could make a cool little intro and everything. Okay, wait,
yeah.
Kenny, tell Giulio about the Antarctica conspiracy.
So there's two layers to this thing. The first one that's interesting is that common culture has Antarctica being discovered in January of 1820. And so that's been accepted for a really long time. There's basically, there was a Russian expedition, a British, and an American. So it got discovered by three different groups. The problem with that is if you look back on maps made in the 1500s, there's maps that show a detailed coastline of Antarctica. I went down the rabbit hole on this thing. So there's four key conspiracy theories that people kind of attach to, and I want to read them and give me what you would rank as the top one.
Okay.
So the first one is the hollow earth theory. So this theory basically says that Antarctica is not a solid continent, but it's a hollow shell with an opening at the South Pole. And inside the shell, there's a lush, temperate world that is basically inhabited by ancient civilization. So all these crazy UFOs that people see coming out of the water and darting around, they link that to the hollow earth theory. The second one, this is the one that I'll just come out and say this is bullshit, but it's the Nazi base theory. And this theory claims that the Nazis post-World War II relocated to Antarctica and built a secret base home to advanced technology. I'm saying if you believe that, I have a bunch of stuff to sell you that's going to make you rich. The third one is the alien base theory. So Antarctica is famously unincorporated, so no one country owns it. And that is basically because that there's a theory that says that the aliens have a base in Antarctica, and that Antarctica is used by aliens to basically conduct experiments on humans. And then the last one is the forbidden zone theory. So this theory claims that Antarctica is restricted and it's off limits to the public outside of the scientific community. And it's actually home to a secret military base. They dump nuclear waste there, and possibly even the lost city of Atlantis. So of these four, yeah. So Atlantis. Now I have gone down, thanks to Joe Rogan, the Atlantis like rabbit hole, which is a whole nother thing. But of these things, first of all, have you seen these? And then which one do you kind of put to the top?
I haven't heard of any of these.
Me either. He was like, I have 4. I was like, where did you learn this shit?
The most like likely one, I mean, I don't think any of them are likely, obviously.
I know, it's a funny word.
Sure.
I think the alien one is the most likely if there were to be one that's likely, just because the other three are so absurd that I just can't imagine how they would even be happening. So for the Hollow Earth one, I don't see the incentive for us to like hide that. Like, wouldn't scientists know about that? Why is that bad? Like, why can't we know about the Hollow Earth, this lush underground, whatever the fuck that is? So that's ridiculous. The Nazi one is obviously ridiculous. But more realistic than the Hollow Earth one.
Yeah.
You know, because like, I don't know, I guess theoretically, I don't know, maybe like whatever, you know. And then what was the other one?
The other one is the forbidden zone theory. So basically that Antarctica is home to like military based and like testing. I mean, it was weird that all the countries band together and they're like, we all agree no one's going to touch this thing. I mean,
that made sense until Atlantis got incorporated into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because people have to like, if it makes too much sense, then people are like, let me sprinkle a little crazy dust on this, you know? So,
I mean, I guess like, why not? You know what I mean? Why couldn't that be a place where they dump a bunch of stuff or whatever?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know about the Atlantis thing, but I am curious about it. Is Atlantis one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world?
I don't think so.
I think people try and say it's not real, but I've seen the movie. It's real.
I know a couple of those are considered, it's like wondered whether or not they ever existed. Like I went to where the Hanging Gardens of Babylon supposedly were in Iraq, but like I guess scientists have said that they likely didn't really exist or something, or I'm not really sure.
But you went there.
But there's
so
no
you
like,
know.
there's no proof of them still or whatever.
So
I
weird.
have I have the 7 ancient wonders of the world. Do you guys know them off the top? How many do you think that we can get just right here?
I could guess. Pyramids. Stealing the
All right,
easiest one.
1,
Hanging Gardens of Babylon,
2.
Colossus of Rhodes.
What?
The is that not on there?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The statue of Zeus,
Nailed it.
Temple of Zeus, as well.
Statue of Zeus and
Okay,
Temple of Artemis.
Okay, Halicarnassus, the whatever that's called, the mausoleum.
Nailed it. Yep.
How many do we have now? 5.
Yeah, you were at 5. Yeah.
Is the Colosseum one?
No.
Shit.
I don't know that I can get the other 2.
The Lighthouse of Alexandria, and Google Bard gave me 6 when I asked for 7. What the fuck?
This tech trash. I could have never gotten any of those. Holy crap.
Dude, that's impressive.
That's pretty
you.
good. Yeah, I wrote down some
I've been
geography
to,
questions for you too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, please.
I was like, I know this dude knows country capitals, so I wrote some down.
Yeah.
Oh no, you know what, Giulio, you were totally right. It is the Colossus of Rhodes. You nailed it. Dude, that's pretty sick.
What?
Thank you.
Oh my God. Hang your hat on that.
That's ridiculous.
Skills you didn't know you needed.
I do want to circle back really quick before we jump. I kind of want, so I admittedly, I listened to the podcast, but I would love to hear kind of end to end the full story of being kidnapped by the Taliban. You had me glued to the speakers. Like, I didn't move for the entire time that you told the story. So if you could just run the audience through kind of the beginning to the end, it was such a sick story.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, we'd already had a super long day. Like, we drove this crazy drive that, it's funny, Google Maps only said it was like a 2-hour drive, but I don't think enough people have used Google Maps on the route for it to be accurate. That makes sense. So like the roads aren't paved. It's like you drive through these like mountain roads that aren't paved that are like you're like bouncing around, and there's all these these coal trucks going back and forth from Pakistan that are just like packed to the brim with coal. They're like really gross, like not emissions friendly trucks. You know what I mean? So it's like intimidating. And then, we drove through this mountain tunnel that's like 6.5 miles long, no ventilation, one lane in either direction, takes like 20 minutes to drive through it. And we were stuck in like a traffic jam because somebody got a flat tire, like stuff like that. So like really scary, long, stressful, tiring drive. Right. And we're like almost done with the drive finally, but we're driving at night now, which they say you shouldn't be doing in Afghanistan. You shouldn't be driving at night. It's just, the Taliban at the checkpoints are more likely to ask you more questions. They're going to find out you're a foreigner. It can just be like more troublesome for some reason. I didn't really understand that at the time, but I was like, all right, why would it be different at night? Anyway, we end up getting stopped by the Taliban. They make us get out of the car. We got stopped by them, a dozen times, but usually they're like, oh, wow, you guys are really foreigners? Whoa, that's crazy. Like, I see your passport. Whoa, crazy. All right, if you need anything, let us know and let us go type of thing. Or make us get out and they take pictures of us for their like collection type of thing, but rarely was it
collection.
Get out. Yeah,
You're
no,
like
wow,
in their man cave on the wall.
And they wouldn't be in. They didn't want to be in the pictures. I think now people visiting are able to take pictures with them. Not that I want them, but like, just I think that's an update because I've been seeing on some of the accounts of the travel people I follow. They've been in Afghanistan taking photos of the Taliban. So whatever. So anyway, we end up on the side of the road eating dinner with them. They had beans that they poured us out of a Gatorade container, like one of those big Gatorade coolers. And then we're eating dinner, we're talking, they're asking us all these questions, we're sort of answering in ways that we think are going to keep them happy, you know what I mean? Not necessarily telling the truth about how we feel about the Taliban and stuff, Anyway, then we're like, all right, can we go? And they're like, no, like you have to come meet the commander. What are you talking about? And we're like, oh. So we end up in the car driving like half an hour out of the way to go to this compound where the Taliban local commander is with all his like henchmen and a bunch of other guys with like 100 guns on the wall, like ammunition, like the kind of gun where you like hold it and do that, like from heat, like crazy guns.
Like a turret gun.
Yeah. We're like, what the hell, dude? And they're being nice, but like in that way where like you're sort of thinking it's going to turn and get weird at some point. So anyway, we think we're about to go, and they're like, no, we have to search you, but they wouldn't search us. They let us search ourselves, but we had to show them because they said that wouldn't be polite or something.
Right.
I think our driver actually suggested that. He's like, why are you guys, we're your guests. Why are you taking our shit out of the car? And he's like, oh, no, don't worry. We'll make him search himself. So I'm showing them everything in my bag. Sock, lighter, like literally every single thing.
The thought of you just holding up your undies, they're like, check. Like, that's so funny.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, sick. I love this.
I'm nervous about all the camera gear because I'm, but they didn't seem to either care at all or know what it was or I don't think they cared. I think they were looking for money. Eventually we end up in the driveway. Now it's dark. We're standing in the driveway. It's pretty creepy. Now mind you, all this stuff, we made a cartoon out of this story for the videos. We were too scared to attempt to film it. Plus, even filming it would have maybe put our guides in a little bit of jeopardy. So we wouldn't have shown it anyway. But so now they end up finding money in my backpack. It's a lot of money. It's like $5,000. And I had a scattered envelopes thinking that if they found some money, they wouldn't find it all. But that actually ended up working against me because if I had it all in my iPad, which is where the first envelope was that they didn't find, they never would have found it. Now, I don't know if them not finding it would have become a problem or what. But anyway, they find the money. They count it all on their camera to prove that they didn't take any. And then when the camera's off, he's like, but how about a donation? I was like, oh, God. So now I'm like, are they just going to take all the money? This sucks. At this point, we had already had the idea for the school. This money was supposed to go for the school. I'm like, oh God, this is really stressful. What are we going to do? Anyway, they end up only asking for a little, which was funny and random to me because I don't think they're supposed to be doing that. So I don't think they wanted to get in trouble. I think they thought if they only took a little, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Maybe we wouldn't tell on them or whatever. Crazy. So anyway, I'm like, oh, dude, absolutely. Here you go. Here's the money. Can we leave? They're like, yeah, sure. Here's our number. Call us when you come on this way back. We'll get lunch. And we're like, okay.
Lunch.
The only way back to where we needed to go was through that checkpoint that we got stopped at. So we spent the whole day in our next location, but the looming reality that we needed to drive past that checkpoint again was just hanging over my head. And it was really, really stressing me out. So we left super early and we drive. And at one point the driver turns around and he just goes, or not the driver, the guide was like, that was the checkpoint where they were. And they just weren't there yet because it was in the morning. They're not always at every checkpoint. So I was felt so happy. And then also the tunnel on the way back wasn't as crowded. So it wasn't as scary driving through it. The drive back was so much better. And it was the most incredible feeling to get through that because it was pretty scary. And then we had one more day and I was excited to get out of there, to be honest. The Taliban thing kind of shook me a bit. I mean, I know I say it casually, but in the moment it felt stressful. You were too close to a very unfavorable, unpleasant situation. And to me, that was suddenly I'm being held for a long time. Yeah. That's maybe my biggest fear is just being held onto for a long time in a place I don't want to be. Where everyone else in my life, their lives move on, but mine doesn't. I stay there. And then I come back and everything's different. That's maybe my biggest fear as far as traveling goes. So good for now, knock on wood. But yeah, so
it's a great story though. What a good dinner table story. And that's something that was probably the very thing you feared going into it. And then it happens, right? How do you, I don't know, emotionally prepare for a trip like that?
So I'd read stories from people who had been there recently who had these amazing Taliban stories that were we got taken, they put blindfolds on us, they held guns up to us, and then we end up meeting the main guy, and I was whoa, that's crazy. I don't want to do that. But the idea of having some hilarious, not that scary Taliban situation sounds kind of at least intriguing. You know what I mean? But then, when I was living it, I was sort of this is not what I wanted.
Not as funny as I thought.
And so you read those stories and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? Afghanistan.
Yeah. Well, so the thing that made me feel better was the people doing this they are sort of like thrill seekers. I'm not
Mm.
really that kind of person. Like I like traveling. I get a thrill out of traveling in general, but not out of like hanging out with corrupt governments and becoming friends with them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. And also the people who were telling these stories were traveling solo. Like they take pride in not having a guide, traveling solo. And I was like, okay, well, if I have a guide, this won't happen. The realization that my guide wasn't fully in control of the situation like freaked me out a little bit. Like,
Mm.
while it was happening, I was like, he's not in control right now. And that is scary. This is the first time I had really experienced that. Like even in Iraq, wherever else, like when we're dealing with the police or soldiers, like the guides always felt fully in control. During this Taliban situation, it did not feel that way. Yeah.
What was your next trip after Afghanistan? Like, did you go to Miami or New York or somewhere super simple or easy?
I travel a lot for comedy. It was probably a comedy trip or a wedding. I've been going to a lot of weddings. I don't specifically remember where I went next, but it was most likely some sort of comedy related domestic trip. So yeah, it was much more chill.
Yeah, like the worst thing that happens when you go to like, you know,
Nebraska.
Bloomfield, Indiana or Nebraska, and there's something bad that happens and everyone's like enraged and you're like, well, you didn't get kidnapped by the Taliban. Yeah. So relax.
You know what? I can tell you specifically. Let me look right now because I'm actually curious now.
Kenny, on Oops, Giulio and Francis like count the flight. What am I trying to say? Like the flight
Yeah, how many
legs
flights we've
that you
taken.
take. We would crush this game, Kenny. We're out of town like 3 times a month. We should play this game.
You guys are killing it. Yeah, you're probably doing more than me. Yeah, my next flight after that was to Chicago.
Ah, perfect.
Like a month after. So, you know.
Oh my God. What a whirlwind though, to like go from Afghanistan and then be in Chicago, get a hot dog, walk around like the nice clean streets. It must have been like bizarre almost.
Yeah. So it's funny being back the first few days, it almost feels like you have some sort of weird PTSD, but not in like in the like scary, serious way where you're like, no one could possibly understand what you just experienced. So it's like hard to even talk about it. And you're just so tired. And I got pretty sick on the flight back too. So like that sucked.
There's nothing worse than being sick on a flight.
That was the worst part of the trip, I would say. Worse than the Taliban thing, for sure.
Being sick on the plane?
Very sick for like 17 hours.
What'd you fly there?
Well, Cam Air is the Afghanistan flight, but my flight from Dubai back to America, because we flew from Dubai to Afghanistan, Cam Air, which is like the Afghan airline. And then there's a couple other airlines fly there too, but that was what we flew. And I got really sick on the Emirates flight back, and it wasn't the direct one. There was a connection in Milan, so it made the trip longer. And sick as a dog the entire time. It was really brutal.
I hope you're in an aisle seat. There's nothing worse than like feeling like you're gonna, and then you're like, move it.
Yep. Thank God I was in an aisle seat. But yeah, like you get back, and then like within 5 days you're just back to your life. But I don't have as much of a romantic vision of it because I then sat and edited for like 500 hours trying to get the videos ready.
So you edit them all?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is the hardest part.
It would be too expensive to pay someone. So I like kind of have to. I have no choice. But for this particular one, like once I got to like the finish line, just to spruce it up and make it a little bit better, I had somebody do the color professionally. I had somebody make my sound mix better. And I had somebody like do an edit on top of my edit just to like cut it down. And like, I still have to look through those and see what I'm going to use and what I'm not going to use. But it's a big process. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the next one. We'll see what it is.
It's so hard to just say like, I'm done. I'm going to stop touching it. It's over. That's like, I have such a hard time doing that with our videos. I'm like, hard. I could go.
And then you'll end up watching it a month later and be like, I didn't do that right. I should have cut this more. I should have taken this out. Why did I leave this in? Why didn't I put the other thing in, type of thing,
Yeah. Why did I say Wednesday so weird? I'll like judge like one word I said and be like, the whole thing. We got to fix the whole thing. That's why I don't edit them anymore. That's Diana's job.
I actually had a super hard time editing the John Cena video. So I pranked Connor Ann and I had her thinking she was going to meet John Cena in a hotel room in Orlando, Florida.
Sounds so bad when you say it like that.
Well, there was a little bit more to it, but if you haven't seen the video, the full context is clean and professional and wholesome. Connor thought she was going to be getting her big break, meeting John Cena, and then going to dinner with him. But I created this whole world for her, and we had a ton of footage. But it's so weird. And I don't know if you run into this because you have a podcast, then you have a pretty cool YouTube channel. And then you probably also have to make like short form clips for social, because that's probably how you would drive like engagement. And I find making content for each platform is so freaking different. And it's so annoying. Like YouTube is such a different construction than like shorts, TikTok, or Reels. I don't know how you sort through that.
So I have somebody who does everything podcast related for me. I don't do any of that. I never have. I don't know if that I would have been able to handle it. But as far as my stuff, so it's funny you say that because I'll be done editing this like long form, like widescreen YouTube like thing. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to cut it down. In the past, I've just been like too burnt out to even try. And like any of the short form stuff has been like not as good as it should be or could be. So for Afghanistan specifically, I'm having somebody else do the vertical clips because I just don't want to have to deal with it. And the hard part is like doing the long form. So, paying somebody to make a couple of shorts isn't that expensive. So I am having somebody else do it, to be honest. But with some of my old vlogs now, I'm trying to post more. So like, I'm just looking through everything I got, and anytime I see something, I'm like, that'll work. I'll clip it, throw captions on
Whatever
it,
works.
throw it on the fucking, throw it up there. So
quantity over quality for us at the moment.
Well, it's like, I'm trying to keep the quality high as possible, but I feel quantity is important.
And it's like we'll put a video that we worked really hard on YouTube, and it gets, maybe 100 views. And then I'll post something that I just made in the airport at 5 a.m. in 3 seconds, and it gets like 6,000 views. And I'm like, what is this? Is there an algorithm working against me? I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, I had a video I made in the Galapagos Islands that were like, I just put like, this is back when like IGTV was like, it was like pre-reels. So like, I just threw the whole thing up there, whatever. It was like 7 minutes or something. And like, got very shitty engagement. Like nobody watched it. I was like pretty depressed about it. And I recently like was just looking at it, and I just like took a tiny clip from it and just threw it on my Instagram. And it's like the best performing thing I've ever posted.
So frustrating.
So frustrating.
Yeah. So, and it is a funny part of it. So like, I'm surprised, but I think it deserves it, of course. But like, I'm just kind of like, okay, I have no idea. So I'm just going to try my best to make as much stuff as I can to put out there.
Between putting like so much blood, sweat, and tears into these videos you post on YouTube versus, like you said, somebody handles all the podcast stuff, do you listen to every podcast that comes out? Like everyone?
I don't listen to any of them.
Are you serious?
Pretty much. I mean, I think I listened to the Iraq and Afghanistan recap podcast because I was just like excited about the trip still and wanted to hear what it sounded like. But I'm not even kidding. I think I've listened to I don't think I've ever listened to a full one, and definitely not. And even just like 5 minutes of one, maybe less than three or four episodes.
Because Kenny and I will say shit sometimes, and I'll listen back and be like, what were we? I don't even remember having this conversation. This should not even be in here. Oh, yeah. And it's I feel like listening back can be a curse in a way, because then I start like, censoring whatever we say on here.
Totally. And I mean, I try to be better and better as time goes on about like self-monitoring while I'm saying stuff and being like, what is this going to sound like to people? So be as thorough as I can, give myself as many outs as possible, and, be as clear as possible. But still, stuff's going to slip through the cracks. I depend on the producers to like listen for that stuff. Be like, if you hear anything potentially problematic, let me know. And, whatever. I don't listen back. If I start getting like a ton of negative feedback about something specific, like that's sent directly to me, because I try not to read comments too much either. I don't read our Reddit. I don't, I don't want to.
Don't ever read the comments.
Let them get in my head, But just try to be reasonable with myself and not too critical. And I don't listen.
We get some hysterical comments on some of our videos, like just ripping me to shreds. But I will say they're very laughable and fun, and they also get like 1 million views on your TikTok. So it's like, yeah, there's 100 people fighting in the comments about how stupid I am, but you guys, you're stupid
Right.
because it has 100.
If there's a silver lining, it's always great.
Yeah,
If there's a
it's
silver
100,000
lining, it's great. 100%. And if what they're saying is stupid, then it doesn't hurt. But like if they tap into one of your insecurities, if they like notice something about you that you agree with, or like that can be a really dark path. Yeah. So try my best to avoid seeing those, or hoping that I just hope that they don't exist in general. But every once in a while they'll get through, and you just got to be strong.
Ignorance is bliss.
It's a privilege to have haters. So got to try to remember that.
Yeah. We had people in the comments being like, how does she even, like, just this rich girl traveling? And I was like, well, I travel for work, which I'm super lucky to do. But people in the comments are defending me. Like, don't talk about her that way. Like, just random strangers. Her boyfriend, or someone said her husband pays for it. And I'm like, oh, I'm married now. I'm in a relationship now. Who? Someone tell me. People are on the internet like defending my ass. I just love it so much. Okay, so there's like 400 plus episodes of Oops. Mm-hmm. That's amazing and insane. We kind of took your like little model in a way. We're doing once a week, and then we were like, let's just ramp this shit up and do it twice a week and put out more stuff. So we're definitely newer to the game than you are. We're on episode 50 now, which is cool. Yes. But tell me, like, how often do you say shit on the pod that comes back to bite you in the ass? Like often, or
I don't want to like. I'm nervous to even say it out loud, but like for the most part, not that often. When Francis and I were doing it together, he would be more likely to be the one to say something that would like get him in trouble. But he even got better at it as time went on. And for me, it still happens. And there have been times where I've been like, I actually agree with that. Let's cut it from the episode and re-upload the episode type of thing,
Yeah.
Or like take the YouTube down.
Most times you don't even know. You're just talking.
Sometimes you don't even know. But for the most part, like, I guess the rule that I try to adhere to is like, try to avoid going after groups of people if you don't have to. Like, it's one thing to like make fun of a group of people in a stand-up joke. It's harder to get away with in a podcast for some reason.
Totally.
And I know that like comedians are anti-cancel culture, and like I ultimately am too, but I also don't feel the need to like make people feel bad about themselves. You know what I mean? So I try to kind of avoid any sort of thing that's going to like make people feel bad by listening to my podcast, even if I'm being funny. You know what I mean? And I think like that, just because like I think it's like mean. You know what I mean? I would hate to like hear something that made me feel bad about myself, some fucking prick podcast person, you know what I mean? So I try to like remember that, and that's a good place to start. You can't always avoid it. And sometimes, I'm okay with being controversial if I really believe in the thing that I'm saying. Obviously talking about vaccines or COVID or politics, that kind of stuff's going to make people get upset, or like, abortion, like anytime politics comes up, which isn't happening a ton. It's going to happen. The debate's going to start, but I'm more prepared for it then.
Totally. Yeah. We also try to not talk about abortion on this podcast too. Real touchy. But do you have a favorite comedian? Who's your favorite?
So funny you say that. My girlfriend was asking me yesterday. She's like, "Do you have a favorite comedian?" People always ask me like, "Who's your favorite comedian?" And like, I don't know what to say. And I kind of like
yourself. Me.
No, definitely not.
That'd be a
no, but I mean, there's a couple of comedians who I'm friends with who I really think are hilarious. Who like, honestly, this one guy, he doesn't even do it a ton anymore, but like I find him so funny. This guy Tom McCaffrey, he has a couple albums that are so funny. Like, I've listened to his albums probably more than I've listened to any comedy album. As far as like mainstream comics are concerned, like obviously I admire the sort of like the big dogs of comedy who are just like hilarious and prolific, and I admire more their just like ability to like be on top of the game and make good specials still like year after year after year. So the people who you'd expect me to say would be the people in that list, maybe like Bill Burr, Chappelle, obviously like a Cat Williams. I've watched Cat Williams, a couple of Cat Williams specials a bunch of times. So
I love Cat Williams. What is it? The grocery store bit. He's putting
Oh
things
my
in
God,
like
so
the
funny.
grocery cart. Kenny's a big Chappelle guy over here.
Yeah, he's
I
great.
think
I
if
love Chappelle.
it's too good. I think
Yeah.
the one I've probably listened to like the most is Anthony Jeselnik. I love that
Oh, yeah.
negative
He's
guy.
great too.
It's so fun.
He's great too. It's funny. I met a guy the other night who's friends with him from growing up, and he was like, or something like that, college maybe. And he's like, he wasn't even going to be a comedian or something, but I told him he should do it. So now he's a comedian. I was like, oh,
What?
No way. That's so cool.
he said it like jokingly because he realizes that that's insane to take full credit for Anthony Jeselnik being a
Yeah.
comedian. But like, he's like, if you meet him, like I've never actually, I don't think I've maybe met him, but I don't think I've ever actually talked to him. But he's like, if you talk to him in the future, like tell him I set it up. I was like, all right.
That's kind of cool. You have an in.
Yeah. So,
Giulio, so what is your process? I'm always interested in creative people and how they like create their thing. So like singer-songwriters, it's super fascinating for them to bring their fans along with like creating, music. For creating comedy, what's your process for, doing a 30-minute set, an hour-long set? How long does it take you to make, and how does that magic come to be?
that's a good question. The 15-minute set turns into the hour set. Like that's kind of how comedy works. So like unless, you happen to be some like TikTok person who blows up and then suddenly you're on the road doing an hour and you don't know what you're doing. Like, which
Is that Matt Rife? Oh.
No. He's like an OG comedian. He's been around for, I know people hate on him because he's a pretty boy, but he's been in the game for a while, and I'm not super familiar with his stuff, but we have a lot of mutual friends, and I know he's been out here for a while, so I suspect he has chops. I mean, more of like literally a person who just like has never done stand up. They're funny on TikTok, and now suddenly they're expected to like put a live show together. Like, that's a really difficult thing to do, and it takes years to get good at stand up. So I suspect those people are having a lot of trouble, and I've heard from people that they often do when they go on the road. So typically what'll happen is like, you build up your set. You first you have a couple good jokes, and then you build around that. And over time, one day you'll write a joke that's better than all the jokes you have. So now you are playing catch up to that joke. So over time, you kind of go through that. At some point, you're probably getting passed at comedy clubs, meaning like you're getting paid to work at them. Can take years, can take some people less than others, but it's never happening overnight. It's never a thing even usually that happens in 2 years. It's usually like 5 years, 10 years. Then you're finally getting paid $20 to do spots
intense.
after all that time.
Jeez.
Yeah.
$20.
So now listen, if you have like built some sort of following, and if you're selling tickets on the road, you can make real money, right? But like if you're just in the city you live in doing like 10-minute spots, like you're not making enough money to pay for your life unless you're doing supplemental stuff, whether it's in the industry or not. You might have a full-time job, you might be an actor, you might be a writer, whatever, you know what I mean? So for me, I started doing the road, like headlining for real, like the beginning of last year, the beginning of 2022. I had done probably a dozen hour-long sets before that, in times where I was ready, times where I wasn't, and my hour now is obviously probably much better than the original one that I was doing. But so that happens over time. So now, doing an hour is different than doing the short set, but it's not that hard necessarily to like take the highlights from the hour or whatever you feel like doing from the hour and doing it in the short set. The long set, you can breathe a little bit more. So like if you're on a show with 6 other comedians and you're doing 15 minutes, the guy who went before you might have just like done amazing. And now you have to like bring your A game and like do your best stuff, keep the crowd engaged. So you might try to get to your punchlines faster. You might try to like keep it tighter. You know what I mean? So it's a little different. And also being on the road a lot of the time, if you are selling tickets specifically, and it's not just like the built-in comedy audience, there are people there who like you. They know you, they like you, they want to hear you. So like you have a little more leeway with like how long it can take for you to get to the punchlines because people are really interested in listening to you. If you're winning people over, you kind of have to win them over and therefore keep their attention. So it'll be kind of clear to me when I'm looking at my audience, if I'm doing a city, how much of the audience are people who listen to my pod or who like know about me from the internet or from TV or whatever, and the people who are just randomly there. And if the random people outnumber the people who I think know me, I am like, okay, I got to bring it tonight. Like I got to win these people over. You know what I mean? But I'm used to doing that because I was doing it for a decade before at comedy clubs where nobody knew who the fuck I was night after night. So that's sort of as comprehensive of an answer, I think, as I can come up with.
So what do you do, or how do you approach your set to win over an audience that may not be familiar with you? Is it like energy? Is it like getting to the jokes a little faster?
Mind tricks.
Yeah, good question. So I definitely don't change the set. It's like, this is what I got. If you're changing the set, you got a lot of work to do. You know what I mean? In my opinion. Now, granted, of course, it's fun to like do a local anecdote or something experience you've had since you've been in town or someone you can relate to where everybody's from. That can be endearing and fun to bring up to the crowd. But you don't want to make if you're in Utah, I'm not going to talk about Mormons my entire set when I don't normally talk about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So seriously. So I think it might just boil down to like, my set, like I'll make sure that I'm starting with like strong stuff and like my stronger stuff in a way that still builds. Like I'm not going to do my best stuff right at the beginning, but like the stuff I'll make sure that like I'm keeping them engaged. So it's like, okay, that worked. That means I can do this. But if that didn't work that well, I can move on to the next thing instead of doing the progression of that joke. Because if they didn't laugh at that part, it might be hard to get them to laugh at that part. And then I run the risk of losing their attention. And then, if you're really losing their attention, sometimes you can play around with them. You know what I mean? Like if you find chunks that really don't like you sometimes, or they aren't like laughing or smiling, it could be fun to try to like break them in a little bit by talking to them and joking around. That can work. So there's little tricks that you don't want to have to use. But you do what you got to do to get through the hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it goes well on the road. You know what I mean? You're selling tickets. People like you. They want to see you. Or their benchmark for what they're entertained by might be low also. So you might be doing a random room, and they might be the best audience you've ever performed for. You don't really know, and you kind of have to like gauge as you go. You know what I mean? And work on the fly.
I was in Los Angeles at the Comedy Store, the one that's on Sunset Lake. And I saw, it was a pretty big headline night, but
the main room?
The main room. Yeah. So Whitney Cummings goes third, and she just absolutely killed. Like she had everyone just rolling, and she was trying out and like testing out a few jokes. And then afterwards she did this really cool thing because she did a bunch of trans jokes. And there was like half the room that was like, oh shit, like I thought only Chappelle does the trans joke, right? And she checked in and she's like, is that joke okay? So she like does the whole thing, but she absolutely kills. And then she ends with a little crowd work of like asking if they like the joke. And the guy that came up after her, he was good, but following her set, I felt so bad for this guy because she delivered like 10 out of 10, and this guy came up after, and it's like, damn, following Whitney Cummings.
It's not his fault.
That's tough. Yeah,
he was not set up for greatness.
He was not set up. And then after him was Eliza. And so he was sandwiched between Whitney and Eliza. And I was just like, buddy, you just got the short end of the stick there.
Yeah, that's tough, man. You hate to see it.
And he set Eliza up for greatness, being not that great. It's tough.
Well, dude, listen, on any given night, I don't know who the guy was, but, it's an interesting thing where on any given night, that guy might have the best set of the show and the other two might be struggling to follow him. It's a weird thing like that. I don't know specifically who it was, so I can't say for sure. But obviously, those other two that you mentioned are seasoned pros. I've opened for Whitney a couple times.
Oh yeah,
so cool.
Yeah, and she's awesome. Obviously an OG and just like legend in the business. You know what I mean? As far as just like all her like TV writing stuff and shit. So, but to your point, it can be difficult to go up after somebody who just murders really hard. We've all gone through it. And it sounds like that guy, that was what happened to him that night.
And comedy's weird. You can be like performing a totally normal show on a Tuesday night, and then Dave Chappelle can like show up and just take 3 hours out of there's not another industry where like top dogs just rock up. Just say,
LeBron just walks into the gym. He's like, I'm at LA Fitness. I'm about to just jump in this pickup game here.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it's cool. And especially in, obviously in New York and LA specifically, and now Austin.
I know. Austin's popping off.
You never know who's going to pop in on any given night. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, last little thing I want to say about the pod. So this morning I was listening to your episode and I was cracking up. Big G, aka Julio's dad, for those who don't know. He's like becoming...
Connor's obsessed.
I'm obsessed with him. He's becoming an icon. Did you see this coming?
No, but I'm happy about it.
He's he's owning it, you know?
Yeah, he is. He's a good sport, and he's funny and fun. I thought it was a really fun episode. I learned stuff about it.
It was great. And I was like, you probably never thought you'd have him on the podcast. You're just like giving the people what they want, right?
Well, yeah, now that the pod has changed a bit, I want to like keep it as familiar as possible during the transition. So some of these like legacy characters who've never done it before, I've got them on and had fun episodes. I had my girlfriend on. That was a great episode. And then had my dad on for a couple episodes and super fun. So
that's so cool.
But you got to ask me, you said you had geography questions for me.
Yeah, you want some? Are you ready?
Do it.
Kenny's like, he's not gonna, you're picking really weird places. I'm like, this guy knows stuff. I'm telling you. Okay.
Well, Connor Ann, she did this bit like a while back where she asked our team some trivia, and it was just straight like crickets, question after question, crickets. And we just had to lay in the cricket sound like 3 times in a row. And I was like, Connor, we're not smart enough for this, but I think you're going to probably do much better than our team did.
We'll see. I don't know.
I was just trying to give them the opportunity to answer advanced questions, and no one knew the answers. It was awesome. Okay, here we go. You're great at geography. This is a travel podcast. Here we go. Okay, we're going countries' capitals. Okay?
Okay.
Somalia.
Mogadishu.
Nicaragua.
Managua.
Turkey.
Ankara.
Stop.
I told you that this guy's insane.
3 for 3? I knew 0 of those, but I don't know if I could pick out 10 states on a map. So
Fiji.
My hands are here. I'm not Googling. Wait, what'd you say?
Fiji. Starts with an S.
I know this one. It's, is it Suva?
Yeah. I wouldn't have even known where to begin. Slovenia.
Ljubljana.
Yes! What the hell?
Oh my God.
How did
Hands
you
up. I don't believe he's not Googling.
And he pronounced it correctly. It's spelled LJUBLJ. I didn't even know. Okay. You have 4 more. Samoa.
Apia.
Oh my God. Insane.
Oh
Libya.
my God.
Tripoli.
North Korea.
Pyongyang.
Kuwait.
This is silly.
Kuwait is Kuwait City.
Oh my God.
Perfect
Dude, that's
score.
Incredible. This guy just scored 100. I knew one of them. Tops.
That's so epic. I can't believe that you knew Ljubljana. That's insane.
I always worry that I'm going to get in this situation and I'm going to not know one, and like, because it would like crush me.
I specifically picked hard ones. You got them all right. Oh, Antarctica.
So Antarctica isn't a country, so I don't count it.
Look at that! Even answered a trick question correctly.
But it does have an alien base. It does have an alien base.
Don't forget it.
In a lush underground land where
a little tunnel.
Nazis live together.
A shell. That's insane. That's where I'm having my next birthday party. Okay, Giulio. You are the bomb. You got an A+ just now. That was insane. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. Really appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Your travel stuff is amazing. Tell people like where they can get all the goods we've been talking about.
Yeah. So the Afghanistan videos are going to be on the Oops the Podcast YouTube channel. It's a 5-episode series. It's about 2 hours total runtime, maybe a little bit shorter. Really, really good stuff. It's definitely the best thing I've ever worked on. So check that out. And then some of the other travel videos are on my personal YouTube channel, which is Giulio Gallarotti. You can look in the description here to see the spelling. It might trip you up a little bit, but places you can go. Iraq is a great one. There's a couple other good ones in there. My Rwanda videos, like a classic as far as my stuff's concerned. And then, check out Oops the Podcast. I'm not Julio on all the socials. And that's about it. Yeah, catch me on the road.
That's about it. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Later, nerds.